When life looks okay but feels off, this is where we talk about it all. Hi, friends, and welcome to This Shit Can't Be It, where we have real, unfiltered conversations about rising through all the hard things, reclaiming our personal power. Whether you're here to be seen, to be heard, get inspired, find tools on your own healing journey, your growth, your evolution, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Ann Oikel, and today we're diving into achievement to alignment. My guest today is Michael, and for years he had lived with the belief that his worth was defined by his achievements and his providedness. It drove him into chasing success, carrying the weight of others, and silently battling anxiety, all while still feeling unseen and disconnected. His breakthrough came when he stopped trying to fix everything for everyone else and trying to stop fixing everything on the outside and turned inwards. And today he's going to share it all. Hi, Michael. Welcome.
Hi, Anne. Thanks so much for having me today.
Thanks for joining me. I love these conversations because it's nice to get a different perspective from different people and what they've been through and what they've gone through. And I love the fact that I've got some men coming on the podcast and it's not so hormone driven to bring some balance to our world. So this is awesome. So let's just dive right in. Like, can you paint a picture of what life was like for you before you became aware of what was really going on and before you actually pivoted and navigated? What did life look like for you?
Well, it was very stressful. I was always trying to be somebody who was worthy. I came from a very small town. My parents were tobacco farmers in the rural South. And very quickly I learned I didn't want to be a farmer. I didn't want to live that kind of lifestyle. And it was small town and very small kind of little world. And all I could see of any other kind of world was on TV, either a movie star, someone famous. And I decided I wanted to be a fashion designer because I was very creative. And as soon as I could, I got out of college and I moved to New York and I became a fashion designer. And I had lots of successes along the way. And I struggled with relationships a lot. I've never had a relationship in my life longer than 3 years. I self-sabotaged them. And even in personal relationships and going through life, I met a lot of really great connections, but I didn't develop those friendships. And I always kind of looked at those friendships like I was a social climber. I was this little farmer trying to climb the ladder. And I did that. I climbed those ladders, and I made a lot of friends. But I always thought that those friends always looked down on me.
Mm,
That was my perception. So I never valued those friendships very much. And there was one point in my life from 1999 to 2018 that I really struggled with a lot. I had started in fashion design, and by this time I was moving into interior design. And I couldn't be in pictures. If somebody had a camera, I was petrified. So I just couldn't be in a picture. I would make any kind of excuse. If somebody invited me to a wedding, I immediately thought, how am I going to get out of this? Because there would be cameras. For holidays and special occasions, I didn't want to go
wow.
because I was petrified of being in the pictures. And I even had two homes featured in Architectural Digest, but I refused to be in the pictures.
Wow.
Yeah, and it started to hurt my career a lot. And it was one of the ways where I self-sabotaged my career and my success. Ultimately, all because I didn't feel I was worthy. I felt invisible, and I really felt alone.
Yeah. Yeah. So how much of that perception was your own belief systems and wasn't actually reality?
I would say most of it. Um, yeah, I was in therapy for many years trying to overcome this fear of being photographed. And I tried losing weight. I got two hair transplants. I got more different clothes. I was a fashion designer, so I always had good clothes, and I kept trying to look better but it wasn't about how I looked. I'm I don't think I'm the most gorgeous guy, but I'm not the ugliest. It had nothing to do with me being attractive or not. It was something else, and I couldn't find it. And really haphazardly, I was looking into getting a certification in 2018 in a coaching program. And I decided, okay, I'm not going with this program, but it came with a little coaching, 15-minute coaching call. And I got on the call, and immediately I started complaining about the presenter and telling all the reasons why I didn't want to be in it. And the coach asked me a couple questions, and I thought they were just very random. They had nothing to do with what I was talking about. But all of a sudden, I was 5 years old, back in my grandmother's house, crying because my mother didn't pick me up from daycare. And she never came home that night. My father came home late. My grandfather was telling me, stop being so silly and crying. My grandmother was saying everything's going to be okay. And I felt abandoned by my mother. And
Wow.
I decided I was abandoned. And what had happened was my mother was in an automobile accident. She was in a body cast for 4 months. This
Wow.
was in the 60s. I couldn't go to the hospital. And I was going from uncle to aunt. Everybody was trying to look after me. And I would hear conversations like, can you look after Michael tonight? Can you take care of him? And I'm like, they're trying to pawn me off. And my mother left me. Everybody's fine with it because they say everything's okay. Eventually, 4 months were up. My mother came home, and I lived the rest of my life. And as an adult, it's pretty clear I was never abandoned by my mother.
Yeah.
But as a 5 year old, when we're laying down these beliefs, that was what was there.
It
And
embedded.
in that moment, it was like I was at in Las Vegas, and that card thing that goes, I saw my life go before my eyes, and I saw every instance where I created I was alone.
Mm.
Every relationship that I said, no, that's not going to work, and I left. My parents died when I was in early college, when I was 23. And both sides of the family kind of sued me. And so I'm like, I'm not having anything to do with you. And I had a younger sister who was 7 years older, but I moved to New York by myself. And from the time I was 24, I had no family, real family.
Wow.
Yeah. And I repeated that thing of being alone. So that not being in photographs was not really the problem.
Yeah.
It was the solution my unconscious mind had to prove that I was alone in the world.
Wow. Yeah. Interesting. I lost my mother when I was 23.
Yeah.
And you lost both your parents at 23?
Well, I lost my father when I was 19 and my mother when I was 23.
Yeah.
My father had leukemia
Wow.
and my mother had cancer.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's young. No matter how you shake it, that's young. Yeah.
But I have memories when I was, like in elementary school of thinking that I would lose my parents early.
Mm.
I always kind of knew that, which makes total sense from, what I thought was when I was 5.
That's crazy, eh? Wow.
So obviously I said to this guy, like, okay, sign me up. Whatever you just did, I want to do that for other people. And I signed up with that. And it was heavily based around NLP. We talked about that, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
um, and all of that, and really going into limiting beliefs and um, basically how our brains work.
Yes. And we don't have the capacity. Like I always talk about awareness because it starts there, but it's one thing to be aware because that's how my podcast got named. I used to always say this shit can't be it. So I was always aware, but not aware enough to shift anything. So there's different levels of awareness. So I used to always say there's got to be a better way. This shit can't be it. Like this was always in my vocabulary, but it was always it was an awareness that this shit can't be it, but it didn't go any deeper. I didn't feel like I had any control over shifting it and changing it. And it was in that awareness, when the awareness deepened, that I it's not going to change until I do. And that was my shifting epiphany. So what was your shifting epiphany when you got the coaching? How did you transition your own healing journey in order to be able to help others?
First of all, it was exactly like you just said, the awareness. So after the coaching call with that, 2 days later, I went on a vacation with my sister, and she smiled and said, "Let's take a picture." And I smiled, and we took a picture. And over dinner, she said, "You didn't even complain when I took that picture." And I didn't even realize it. And I said, "Let's take another picture. Let's take more." And I was taking these pictures, and I said, "Something is very wrong. Something is very strange. I don't know what happened." And I went looking at what happened. Well, that belief was destroyed. A few months later, I had created another belief to really work on that because it showed up somewhere else. But I was not afraid to be in pictures anymore. And so then when you track that back, the awareness of it and where it came from, that 5-year-old decision that I was abandoned, when I discovered it, it automatically disappeared because it was completely false. I had physical proof that I wasn't abandoned because my mother came back. So that just kind of went poof. And then I said, how can I make other beliefs go poof? And it really is by finding them and reframing them.
Mm,
That part took a few years to learn the process and go through all the things. And it, really took, when I was working in other areas, it would take a lot of work, sometimes over 2 years to break through on some areas. And I
yeah,
said, well, if I did that like that, there's got to be a way to shift other beliefs faster than I'm doing it through root cause and this and all of this
right.
time.
Yeah, yeah,
So the thing that really had happened, and I've done a lot of somatic work, and I believe in that and energy, and I believe we heal the body with energy. Everything is energy. Everything about us is energy. That's the electricity that our brain works on. So really looking at how your world is programmed, how does your brain work? How do our neurons work together? How do they get structured? I love Bruce Lipton, the biology of belief. That gave me a lot of clarity. So how can we do that faster?
right.
And how it came to me to be faster was really through my body and using my body, because I believe that our bodies store everything that we don't want to deal with, especially our emotions. And I had a lot of emotions stored in my body, and which I would use tapping techniques and breath work and all this to release them. I would notice the shifts almost immediately. But how could you find a system to do that?
Right.
And after searching, I found a guy, Tyler Watson, who had developed like an alignment technique that you actually use your body to release the energy, to release the emotions, the underlying negative things we believe about ourselves, release them out of your body by shocking and really like hijacking your body, like shocking a shock to the system, which like re-upsets the
Yeah,
wiring,
yeah,
and then it's gone, and then you have choice.
yes,
You're not running that same pattern that you always run. You're not having to, when you want to do something but you're procrastinating, you're not having to use willpower
yeah,
anymore to force yourself into that
yeah.
thing.
Willpower is not long term. Willpower is like motivation and inspiration. It's a burst, but you need something to last, and that's in your habits and your belief systems. Yeah, it's like sticking your finger in a light socket. You got to have that jolt to snap out of it.
Yeah, because you've got to rewrite that. And in order to rewrite it, you've got to remove it. Otherwise, it's just positive thinking layered on top of negative thing, and the negative thing is
Yeah.
always living there, trying to find. Like when I got rid of being out, I can be in pictures. It had to find another avenue to keep me down.
Yeah.
But with
Yeah.
this process, you can actually release it out of your body, and you have choice instead of the program, because we're always running a program.
100%. I've heard somebody refer to it as the matrix, and I'm like, yes, life is nothing more than a fucking matrix. So if you can tap um, into that system and recode, that's the key. And it all starts here. And like you say, the awareness, nothing happens without it. It starts with awareness. End of story. Even people, like I always say, it's a journey, because very few people I ask this question, they say one thing happened. The odd one will say, I had a life altering experience, like a near death experience that slapped them in the face, and they're like, okay, something's got to change. But most of us, it's a journey. It's not that slap in the face. It's multiple little slaps that keep tapping us. Like I call it the shoulder tap. It's like, you get it yet? Did you get it yet? Did you get it yet? And it's that journey, and then finally we feel the tap, and it's like, what the hell? And you become aware enough to then make the shift and the changes. But you're right, there's so many different modalities out there, and many of them work, but like you say, some of them are slower than others. So I call it the slow burn, because some people want the slow burn. They feel they can't process any quicker, and some people feel they have to go back and rehash all those emotions. And I got really connected with Dr. Joe Dispenza early on in my journey, and I loved it because he's all about like he talks scientifically to the point where I don't fully understand everything, but the dots still connect. So even with my brain, it's like, makes sense. Now how do I do it? But you get snippets of him. So unless you go to a huge event with him, you're missing the how to. You're getting snippets of it, but you're missing the how to. But it was him that said to me that there's no such thing as a bad meditation. And if it wasn't for me hearing him say that, I probably would have never stuck with meditation, because it took me, I'm not joking, to 2 solid years from the time I started, staying fairly consistent, not every day, but fairly consistent, 2 years before my mind actually started to quiet. Because I was that person that said, I can't meditate. My brain is too busy. I can't slow it down. I can't stop it. I can't turn it off. And it wasn't until he said that, and I thought, screw it, I'm going to do it anyway. Because if this is normal and he's saying, let it happen, just come back to the breath. It took me 2 years of learning to come back to the breath and remember to come back to the breath before everything started to calm. And to this day, like I love my meditations now. And when life starts to get chaos, that's my go-to. Go sit, just be. Like I live on an acreage. I have a gazebo, I have hammocks, I've got places I can isolate and just shut everything out and just relax and just calm myself and just curl up and be with me. Because I used to hate being with me, hated it. So big shifts. And that doesn't happen overnight. But with today's technology and the new navigations of hacking, so to speak, like you said it best, hacking your system, it can happen very quickly.
Yes, and I think that with everything that's come up with science and years ago, when I was in my late 20s, I read a book by Jane Jane Roberts, and it was a Seth book. And Seth was this entity that she channeled and wrote a book. And so I used to be into all that, and I kind of let it go. And then about in 2019 or 2020, I read Bruce Lipton's book, The Biology of Belief, and he's about quantum physics and how he explains everything about us through physics. And I
Right.
was really into that. My intuition was telling me, go back and read Jane Roberts' book about Seth. And I was like, I don't know, I'm not into that. I reread that book, and it was the same book
But it has
as
a different
this.
meaning. Yeah.
It was just said in a different way, and that gave
Yeah.
me so much clarity. And thinking, okay, this thing that I thought was woo woo is not really woo woo.
Yeah.
It's science.
Yeah.
And here's the proof. And here's how we can actually make those changes quickly. So You said before, like how you were resisting on all that chaos in your head,
I
trying to get
resisted so much.
into the thing. So
Yeah.
there's a story about when, buffaloes were on the prairie and they saw a storm coming, they stampede to the storm because they know as the storm is coming and they run to the storm and the storm is going this way and they're going this way, they spend less time in the storm.
Yeah, in the turmoil. Yeah.
We run away from the storm.
Yeah. And it
So we
lingers.
spend years in the storm. So how do you make it faster? Run to the storm. So
Yeah.
you've got a trigger. That trigger is your transformation.
Yeah.
That's all it is. It's letting you know from your unconscious, hey, this thing that your sister did is bothering you. It's a problem. Now you're mad at her for some unknown reason to you. That's what you need to work on. That's where your peace is.
Yeah.
Work on that. And so that's how we can do it faster by really
Yes.
running towards the storm.
And that's why I love having this podcast because I was like, you know what? I'm not for everybody. My personality, there's some people that are not going to like me. But that was the whole point of creating this podcast. So I could connect our viewers to different people, different perspective, different modalities, because people can relate through your trials and your tribulations and how you overcome them and how you now work with people. That's key because if you go to a therapist that your doctor recommends and you walk in that room and the personalities don't click or jive, you're not going to be fully open. You're not going to have that connection that you need. And it's important to have that connection because without it, you're just going to shut down anyway. You're not going to listen. It's not going to work for you. So you have to be able to have connection first before transformation. And that's what I love about having this and hosting this is that it's opening my world up to a variety of people. It's opening up my perspective, which I'm big on is finding alternative perspectives and understandings, but it helps our viewers connect with different people, different modalities to be able to say, that's where I want to start. That's where I'm at now. I need to go here. I need to go there. And having that is key. So, how has all of this taken you from, being that guy that was stuck, trapped in your own belief systems that, like you say, a lot of them are false. I love how Tony Robbins puts it. He's like, is it true? And is it really true? And if you took it to a court of law, is there any evidence to make it not true? And I just had this conversation. Sometimes it is true. If you've got somebody that's in a wheelchair because they don't have functionality of their legs, then they do have some limitations in the physical world that are real. But for those of us that don't and we still think we can't do it, is that belief system real? So sometimes it is, sometimes it's not, but that's how you challenge of is it real or not? And like you say, the fact that you weren't able to stand in front of a camera, like clearly that's when somebody logical sitting back thinking about it, yeah, that's not a real belief. So it's just a camera. But for you, it was very real until you made it not real. And I love that questioning is it real? And I seen this thing here just recently was even our feelings, like if we're feeling depressed, tired, exhausted, if we're just energy is low, what belief system are we carrying to put us in that state? Because you said it best, it starts with the physiology. And that was something that I learned later on. Like I took all these different courses and worked with different coaches and worked with different people. The physiology piece was always missing. And I didn't realize, but that is a big trigger when it comes to changing your state for anything and everything. And like I say, I've heard different people say it. You can't be angry and happy at the same time. It just doesn't exist. You have to choose. So if you can change your physiology and you can literally step out of that negative mode into a more positive mode like that, and then everything else starts to shift. And it was that learning for me. It took a while to learn that the only thing I can control is how I think, feel, and act. It wasn't until I started to break that down and really understand it, because I felt my belief system was, no, that's not true. Because when my mother died, yeah, I'm going to grieve, I'm going to be upset, but how long that lasts is up to me. Like, yes, things happen, we can't control them, but how we think about it, how we feel about it, the meaning we give it, that's how we respond, changes everything. And, my mother's death impacted me for almost 8 years. I've seen people that have lost their children. And I mean, that's one of the worst things that you can ever possibly go through. And that's one, not all. But at the end of the day, how you respond to it, how you feel, how you think, and how the meaning you give it is going to impact how long you let that trigger you going forward. And I love how you tapped into resources to be able to start shifting and like recognizing and being able to shift it more instantaneous, because we need that more now than ever. It's massive. I think anyway.
I 100% agree with you. And then when I think back about your story about meditation, so what is meditation? It's just getting present. Okay. So it's getting present. So your struggle for 2 years was getting out of your past, which is the guilt or the shame that you felt about what happened in the past, and staying out of your future, the anxiety you have about what may happen in the future that never happens. Everything we
Right.
imagine never happens. Some variation happens, but we can't control that, and we can't control the past. So all we have is the present, and our present is the only point of power we have in life. We can only turn this mic off now, or turn it on now, or take an action now to impact our life. So everything else doesn't really matter. It's just a story.
Right.
A good story or a bad story. Usually it's a bad story if we're talking about these things. And when you know it's just a story, then you can rewrite the story and you can ask
Mm,
a question. As a coach, all I do is ask questions.
yeah.
And just like that coach asked me weird questions, I'm like, what are you talking about? And it put me in that place. I'm asking questions and listening to what's accidentally coming out of my client's mouth or my friend's mouth. And I'm asking about that, because that thing that slipped out is the thing that's saying, hey, look at me. I'm the thing that needs to be fixed. What he's saying consciously is some made up thing about, just being very logical.
The smoke and mirrors. Yeah.
The smoke and mirrors. So it is bringing yourself to presence. So one of the things that I do with my clients is, when you talk about that reaction that we have when we get a trigger, it's like something happens and I'm in the middle of the store. You did me wrong and you shouldn't have done that. And well, how does that happen? We see something and then our body goes into this. And so then our body rules the show. It says scream and yell and say, I'm being wronged, before we even get to think about what's going on. I
Yeah.
was in a Lowe's getting paint one time, waited 2 hours, and I'm sitting there saying this stuff, going, okay, I can never come here again. I've made a complete fool of myself. I don't know what I'm doing. It just takes over you. So the first thing I do with my clients is, like, they have a bad feeling. Where is it in your body? Most of the time it's right here.
Hmm.
Tap it, tap it. Okay, feel it. What does it look like? What color is it? How does it feel? What texture does it, like, describe all of it? And they're like this, and then they start describing it this way and feeling it. So when we can actually pay attention to what our body is telling us, that's a huge awareness that we can act on, because most of us are walking around not even realizing that's going on.
No, no. So walk me through, just so our viewers can better understanding. So when you walk somebody through that chaos and they start describing it in their body, because you're right, a lot of us is here, or in the stomach is most places. And they describe the heaviness in the chest. Well, what does it look like? Well, it's dark. Is it solid? Is it mushy? Is it and it's like rubber. It's like when you start describing all that, where do you take people? Like what kind of journey do you take them on as they're describing, what it feels like? Well, it's heavy in the chest. It's black. It's like tar. Like as you're walking, can you walk through a process, or did you want to walk me through a process? Like I love strategies.
Yeah, I would love to. So I don't know if you've ever done any tapping work.
Yep, yep. I've
Okay,
been through
so
these. Yeah,
yeah, it's a little bit of tapping work and some breath work. And we're really looking to shock your system. So when you have that feeling, it could be here, sometimes in your throat chakra or whatever. And as people start feeling their bodies, they'll start to, oh, yeah, I feel it back here in my adrenal glands. They'll
yeah.
have more of a kind of, I'm going to, sorry.
Like this is good because it brings back awareness. So I often experience lower back pain, and this is one thing I want to bring up. So I've had a lot of past injuries, so ankles, knees, back, neck, but pain isn't always there. And sometimes when it is there, it's not always the past injury, but that's where the body takes it to feel the resistance.
Absolutely. So when you start to pay attention to those things, you'll start feeling that resistance, hidden places, and sometimes it's arthritis.
Mm,
Sometimes it's you're always getting a sprained ankle in the same place. So you're creating that awareness. Well, once you're aware of it, start tapping where you feel it. And when you're tapping where you feel it, you're holding it here. You're holding the
yeah,
signal. So imagine this
the heavy
uh,
chest.
yeah, this chest. So here you get your trigger,
Yeah,
and your trigger is like throwing a stone into a pond. It makes this big wave. And now that wave is going all throughout your body, telling, act this way. So we want to stop that big wave. And how we do that, how I do that, is to start throwing like little rocks into the water to counteract the big wave. So the big wave, all of a sudden, those big waves, little waves, they start to cancel each other out. And how we do that is we use our breath work. We breathe a calming breath first when we're tapping here, a calming breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. Think about when you go at the end of a long, successful day, you go, oh. So we want to do that breath, and we do that 3 times. And then we do a pant, which is like you're running away from something. So we go from that calm state that we choose, and then we shock us into a frantic state, a fight or flight state, and we do that 3 times. And then at the end of that, we smile, which releases endorphins and sets it in and solidifies it. And as we're doing those breath and we're tapping on where it is in our body, like here, we go down our center meridian, tapping from our forehead to our C7, which is that vertebrae that you can feel sticking out right here. And we're doing that the whole time. So that's the process, the technique that we do. But before that, we start talking about what's bothering us. Okay, I realize that I'm afraid to get my picture taken. I've been afraid many years to do that because I feel invisible, because I feel I'm not worthy. And that's okay. And I forgive myself. And then I'll do the tapping process. I'll walk through it with you so you can see it. And smile. So all of this attack on your body is shocking your system. It's throwing everything off, and your body's like, I don't know what to do. And when you do that, you have this feeling. My clients are like, oh, well, I feel light and airy. I always first I get them, how big is that feeling before? From 1 to 10,
yeah,
how strong is it? I'm a 10. I love to do that because that's creating more awareness for us.
yes,
I do it for lots of things. I was like, okay, I'm going to go through to this thing. I feel like I'm a 10 at knowing this, or I'm a 3. And then you go through it and then you re-rate it. So then you can see that you had progress. Because unless we pay attention, we're not going to notice the progress.
No, that's right.
So I'll do that once, and then I'll do another one installing the happy thing. Like, I can take my pictures anywhere. People love to see my pictures. I take the best pictures of anybody. It's fun to take pictures. So I'm layering on an empowering belief of the one that I just negative belief that I took
Yeah,
off, and I lay that down. And then people then have choice because you're not run by the pattern anymore.
that's awesome.
And now as a
Yeah.
coach, I don't look around and I see, well, that's a person who's really stuck in anger. That's a person who's triggered all the time. That's the person who doesn't like this. All I see now is patterns.
Yeah,
Oh, I see the pattern. I
yeah.
see the pattern. And it's really
And
fun to look at those patterns because that's all it is.
that's all it is. I was just gonna say that's all it is. Yeah, like you say, the matrix. And 100%. And that's important because I've even in my own personal journey, that's one thing that I was taught was that everything is a pattern. So recognizing the pattern and then breaking the pattern, but also being a creator of new patterns is huge. And it for most people that might be sitting back watching this may not fully understand exactly what that means, but it's being able to get from being stuck into now being a creator and being able to map out and not just create better situations, but now creating your entire life. Like you can map out without the planning. Like when we're 20, you ask a 20-year-old, what do you want in life? They want the title, they want the money, they want the cars, the houses, like it's all about the stuff. But as we get older, those of us that have actually tapped into evolution, learning and growing, because it was once put to me, we're either evolving or we're going back. There's no such thing as stagnant as a human being because you're always being and you're being something. So you're either moving forward or backwards. There's no such thing as just being stuck. But we feel stuck because it's a pattern that keeps repeating and we're not recognizing that pattern to be able to break it. But once you break it, like you say, the doors open up, the options open up. And that's when you can start recreating and creating your own patterns. But it's to get out of that stuckness to even be able to recognize and see. And I can't tell you how many times I was in that for many years, not being able to see my, like I knew I was stuck. That's why this podcast, this shit can't be it. I was recognizing that there's got to be a way to break it, but I didn't take it to the next level to break it because when you break it, that's when the doors open. I call it the floodgates open up because that's when your options and your clear paths come to light. They come to sight. You start to see the path through the forest versus just trees cluttering the path. The pathways open up.
Absolutely. And it's the view that we are looking at that path.
Mm,
You're still in the same place. The opportunities are still there. You're just not seeing them because you're
right.
running that other pattern.
Yeah.
So when you become aware of that other pattern, that's the first aware. Okay, that's my pattern. I can change that. And then you can move forward. And if you're always looking at everything that happens in your life as an opportunity
Mm,
instead of a negative thing, I my favorite quote in the world is by Soren Kierkegaard, which is life can only be understood backward, but must be lived forward.
mm. Yes. Because we can't change the past. We can only learn from it. And that can
Yeah.
help change the trajectory of our future.
And you
100%.
can you can find things in your path like that guy who you wanted to marry who dumped you and didn't even ask you to marry. 20 years later you can see, oh my gosh, that was the biggest blessing I ever got.
Right? Yes.
So if you can see now and look back over the past and see that when something that you don't prefer happens today, you can
Mm,
just go, okay, I know this is happening for my own good.
right.
What is this bringing to me? What is the lesson that I can learn now so I don't have to
Yeah.
learn it again?
I've
I
said
can
that
say
about
it.
my own mother's passing. Like, I mean, you talk about death and it's like, how can death be good? it's good because it's an evolution. It's a cycle of life. We don't get to choose when we go, so make the most of today. But the fact that she left at a young age, she was only 57 and I was 23. And like I went through hell when she died because you think it's happening to you, not for you. So I became a workaholic, trying to avoid all the family drama that was happening after she died because she was like the
Mhm.
glue, again, false belief systems, the glue that kept the family together. But the challenge with all of that was is that she's no longer here. We are. So we're actually the glue, but didn't see it that way. That became the excuse for all the drama that was happening in the aftermath. But the aftermath we created because we weren't accepting and grieving and accepting the fact that she's gone. So for years, and this is a very good example, you know, I hated everything that was wrapped around that. And I got to a point in my life and I'm like, you find the gratitude in the time you had, the time that was spent, the moments that you shared. You start finding the gratitude in it all. And then when you start to reflect back, and it's like, I wouldn't be where I'm at right now if she was still living. I wouldn't have gone through what I went through if she was still living. I wouldn't have had that experience if she was still living. Like I'm in Canada. I grew up in Nova Scotia. We now live in Alberta. I would have never left the province if she was still living. Like that whole the how life has evolved would not have happened if she was still living. So you got to be grateful for the time that you had and the moment she left because it was pivotal. It was all pivotal. And yeah, even your analogy of the storm earlier, I believe when we're running from the storm, we're constantly living in the past because that is our past, running away from the storm, and running to the future or running to the storm is our evolution. That's our learning. That's how we're gonna create the life we want and desire. And creating that life that we want and desire doesn't happen overnight. And I often tell people, we buy into coaches, we buy into programs, we buy into things, we buy into stuff, and we expect it all to work overnight. And rarely does anything happen overnight. Businesses don't go from zero to multi billions overnight. You look at the Tony Robbins, the Grant Cardones, and they came from nothing. The Oprah Winfrey's, especially, like they came from nothing and they built their lives and it didn't come without its trials and tribulations. The only difference is they didn't stay stuck in that trial and tribulation. They looked at it, learned from it, and moved past it. Where the bulk of us sit in it. We sit in it and we stew and we turmoil and we start living in the past. And it's in that whole process that life, the life we're living is that's how it was shaped, was by us either staying stuck and falling back or choosing to evolve and move forward. So yeah, it's it's a big deal to become aware and then do something about it. And it's not as hard as people lay it out to be. It doesn't have to be.
It's not that it's not that hard. It is work. It
Yes,
is work, but
takes
suffering is
commitment.
also work,
Yep. And it's
and
not
like
fun
you.
work. This can be fun work.
Yeah, exactly. It can be fun. And all the time when you first meet clients, they're on the Zoom, they're in the corner, like, well, I don't know. And then after two or three things, they show up. I know exactly what I want to talk about today.
Yeah.
I know, and there is that fun in it. You can still laugh about through the tears and all that, and that it because you can fully express yourself. And when you want to, like, life is going to prepare you for your purpose. I met so many people who don't know their purpose. I want to do this. Well, they wanted to do that because they were running from something else. When you face that thing and you do that thing, that's when you'll know your purpose, because that's why that thing is there, to
Yeah.
show you your purpose. When you get through this, my mother died when she was 57 as well.
Oh wow.
Um, yeah, I was 25. But so I had no family. And then when I lived my life, I moved from North Carolina to New York City and lived in New York City. And I got very close to families. People would say, like, you're like a brother to me. And, I was just all involved in like these huge families. And I kind of looked at them like in a goldfish bowl from the outside looking in and seeing all the things that, people rubbing the people the wrong way and not getting along, and who's causing it and blaming it on somebody else, and these kind of patterns of
Matrix, yeah.
beliefs. And then you can see in families, everybody has their role in the family. He's known as the one that does this, she's the one that's this, and that becomes their identity. And then it goes out into the world. And you know, I used to tell people when I would tell them my parents were died, they'd be sad, like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." And I would say, "That's how it is. Everybody dies."
We're all gonna go.
And I moved to New York, and then I moved back to North Carolina 5 years ago because my sister's oldest son was a heroin addict,
Oh
and I'd
wow.
done a lot of this work, and I'm gonna fix everything. And I came down here and to fix him, and everybody started, because I was holding people accountable. They started not liking me. I became everybody's enemy.
Yep.
For 2 years, I was the enemy, and I was down here in a foreign land with all these Southerners, and I was a New Yorker, and it was rough. And
Yep.
my nephew's fine now, but I broke through a lot of the relationships that now I'm talking to my extended family who I haven't talked to in 30 years. And
Yep.
I am the person who's bringing the family together. Never thought that would happen. And everything in my life, not having a family, taught me how to create connection
mm,
within families. Like
yep.
I have had people come to me, and I'm coaching people who have children who are estranged, who don't speak to them any longer. I am coaching people around relationships that don't work, divorced women,
Hmm.
but I learned all that. I've never been married, and I'm not a woman,
Yeah.
but I can help them see their husband in a way that they can't.
Hmm.
Not that their
Yes.
husband was perfect, but
No, none of us are.
he was living under his, societal cultural rules, and you're living in yours, and you picked him because you needed somebody like that at that time, because you had to learn this lesson that your worth, you had to learn that through him. So those trials and tribulations throughout our lives, no matter what they are, and some people have it much worse than other people, but we all have our traumas.
Right.
We all do.
Yep.
And those lessons, when we look into them and when we go into them and we learn from them, they teach us our purpose. And you said in the beginning that, you're not everybody's cup of tea. Everybody's not going to like, well, that's so many problems that we have today is everybody's trying to be everybody's cup of tea. I believe we were put here to express our own uniqueness.
Yep.
And if your uniqueness is too much for some people, it doesn't matter.
Okay. Yeah.
You're not for them. Because
Right.
let me tell you, no matter how perfect you are, it's easy to find people who don't like you.
Hmm.
There's easy to
100%.
find people who don't like Kim Kardashian or whoever is, the
Yep.
flavor of the day that we're looking up to.
And that's
That's not
okay.
it. Yeah.
No. And that's one thing I had to learn, like getting into the coaching field myself. I remember sitting with I wouldn't say she's my first coach, but she was my first bigger coach. Like I spent the most money on her and I spent the most time with her. And I remember saying, because my child has ADD, autism, select mutism, high social anxiety, like, all the different things. And we were going through this thing. And I was like, I remember sitting there because she's my child. So we would do this often, especially back when she was at that age. And I remember sitting there and I said to her, I said, how am I supposed to coach other people when I can't even guide my own child? And she looked at me and she said, your child doesn't want you to coach her. You're her mother and she's not your ideal client. you're you're relating apples and grapes. They don't even belong in the same basket. And that was my wake up call. It's like, yes, because that was a belief system I had. My child is struggling. I can't help her. I don't know how to help her. And I was just starting my own journey at that point, and I couldn't relate. I couldn't separate the two because to me it was apples and apples. And she's like, "No, you got apples and grapes, my love." And it's like they don't even grow on the same continent. So it's like you got to put things into perspective. And she's like, she doesn't want your help. So you're not going to change her. And that's when I realized that you can't help anybody unless they want it as well. So, you can be a coach, you can be somebody of impact, whether it be speaking, books, like however you want to bring your impact. Your purpose isn't always your job either. It could be a hobby, it could be just something that you do for yourself. Your passion isn't always a career move. And that's one thing that I used to get very confused with as well, because I'm thinking, how am I supposed to find my passion? Like I I enjoyed my jobs, but I didn't love them. And I struggled because I had all these misconceived notions and bad habits, bad belief systems, bad habits, totally unaware of all of it and how it was shaping my world. But I kept stuck in this job in the industrial industry doing, working with marine and oil field and all the different industrial fields. That was my world and I didn't love it. And I didn't know any other way out until I calmed the nervous system and the paths opened. So yeah, like you said it best. It's not our job to fix everyone, but they have to want fixing if they want to shift and change where they are.
Right. And if they stop trying to fix themselves, like when you stop trying to coach your
Hmm.
daughter was not given to you for you to coach her. Your daughter was given to you to show you who you can help.
Right.
So all the struggles that she had is the struggle that people are having that you help them with,
Yeah. Yeah.
and to create that connection with your daughter. And you can't do that by being a coach. You do that by being a mother, by
Right.
letting your daughter to be all the amazing things that she is in her autism and everything that's going on with her.
Yeah.
So you can really connect with her to allow her to be who she is and to contribute. She's not you,
Nope.
she's not a mini you. And so that and all the other things that you do in your coaching, you learned through your experience. And
Yeah.
not just through your experience, but you learned it by not resisting what you were going through. You
Mm,
allowed it. Okay, this is what I've got. Show me.
yes. Yeah.
And here you are today in this
Yeah.
podcast helping
I
all
know.
these people.
We're showing everybody.
Right.
This
So
is
that
awesome.
thing that we resist is the thing that's going to give you everything you ever wanted in life.
Yeah, it's a solution.
So when you see that resistance, okay, that's the storm that you need to run towards. And maybe you don't know how to get through that storm, but you find somebody who can help you get through that storm quickly
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
without it taking years and years.
Yes.
Because you've got people that you can help, people that make a difference in your life. You cannot go out and help all those people if you're struggling yourself.
Yeah. 100%. Absolutely. And that's key. And the thing is, it doesn't mean all of us coaches are perfect, because
No.
that's another limited belief I had to break. It was like you have this image that all these coaches and people that do this work have arrived. There is no arrival ever. It's a journey and then we die. There's no arrival. And I was like, that was a misconception that I had. And I'm like, how can I help people through a journey where I'm still struggling in life myself? And it's like, I'm not helping people where I'm at. I'm helping people that have been where I've already been. That's who I'm helping, not where I am right now. And, I'm the first to say, and even my coach, she used to sit there and she's like, Anne, you challenge me so much. And I was like, how do I challenge you? I was even totally, but I ask questions. I'm always curious. So I'm asking questions. So how she would lead me down a path, I would ask a question and it would disrupt her process. But being the type of coach that she was, she's always open to the rabbit holes and she would go down them with me. And she's like, you always challenge me. And I was like, well, I don't mean to. But she loved it because it helped her grow and how she can like open up her awareness beyond where she's already at because she's already quite tapped in, very tapped in. And it's like, I chose, like, even though I wasn't super like woo woo, I chose a woo woo type coach because that was my biggest breakthrough at the time. I needed to learn what my woo woo was and what my spiritual path would be because for me it was never religion. I'm not against religion, but I feel a lot of religions are boxed and I didn't like the box of one specific religion. So I call it spirituality in my terms, but I take what works out of everything that's available and I take what works for me and apply it. And as long as I'm not being malicious, evil, or cruel, there is no right or wrong in it. So, I used this actually in a conversation I had earlier. You know, you've got religion like the Catholics, Anglicans, and all that stuff, and then you got the Buddhists. Well, they're big into meditation, and the religions pray, but it's still all a form of meditation. And even my karate, it's a moving meditation. Like when you learn those moves and you're doing what they call kata, it's like yoga and tai chi. It's a moving meditation. And it's all to serve the same purpose, and that's calming the nervous system and opening up the pathways for answers, your own answers, everything that's within, releasing it so you can see it.
100%. I,
Yeah.
as a coach, um, when I first started coaching, I think 7 years ago, I was like, I don't know enough. I don't know enough. And I coached for about 3 years, and I said, that's great. I don't know anything. It's not my job to know the answers. I don't know any of the answers. But who knows the answer? My client knows the answer.
For them.
My job is to listen and ask questions. And when they slip up, ask questions there and go down and help them start to, like you said, I forgot who you said. I think it was Tony Robbins, but I remember from Byron Katie. Is this absolutely true?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is it absolutely true?
That's where he
And
got it from.
oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I love her. Um, so that those questions, the answers are already in you and your
Right.
listeners. And they know that. And that's why they're so frustrated because they can't access it.
Right.
So,
Yes.
as a coach, we're just a conduit.
Yep. We're taking the
And
lid
what,
off the bottle.
yeah, because you're in the bottle. You
Yes,
can't see what the label is. You're
you're the
inside the
genie.
bottle. Yeah, just
Yeah.
get out of there. And the coach that helped me the most was actually a coach who just I got to see all of his problems and all of his struggles and all of the things that I mean, he didn't talk like he was perfect. He talked about his addiction to porn and his addiction to gambling and his addiction, but he was just a regular person. Like, he didn't hit rock bottom in porn or all that stuff. He was just a normal guy who was watching it and gambling sometime and doing these negative behaviors, like so many of us doing these things that even if it's scrolling on TikTok for hours,
Yes.
you know, that's a habit we don't want people to know, or watching certain.
It's a form of addiction, but it's sociably acceptable. Just like by being a workaholic, it was sociably acceptable, so it was never recognized as an addiction. But a pattern behavior is an addiction.
Perfect. So I talk to my clients all the time. All you have is addictions and allergies. You have something that you want. You want to make 100 grand in 2 months, and that's your goal that you want. But you'll never have that goal because you're allergic to that goal of allergic to $100,000 in 2 months because that's too much money. And you grew up with money doesn't grow on trees and money is the root of all evil and stories like that. So you're allergic to making money because if you made that money, you would be evil.
Yes.
That wouldn't happen. Or you're addicted to non-ideals that are keeping you from getting your goals, like me not being in photo during that time that I couldn't be in pictures. Social media got invented. Cell phones turned into cameras. Everything became about being in pictures. And then I had two home spreads in Architectural Digest, the pinnacle of my career, and I would not be in the pictures. I didn't say no, I'm not going to be in the pictures. I created a drama around it of getting sick or like missing some big thing,
Yeah.
which was a lie,
Yeah.
you know, and it was my career.
But if you
It
believe
was
it, your body will get sick to help aid in your belief.
it did, and look, I coach a lot of people. I know we all do these things, so I can admit it. I did crazy things to sabotage my success and crying about it.
Yeah.
Like not physically crying, but
No.
it's like I'm the victim of it. Well,
Yeah.
you are, but you don't have to always be that victim. So when you look at it like allergies and addictions, okay, we can break those. We can find out why you're addicted, like money doesn't grow on trees or money is the root of all evil. Like if you've got that belief, doesn't matter what you do, you're not going to make $100,000 in 2 months. No matter how many courses you take, no matter how many gurus you listen to who don't help you get there, because that's the pattern that you're running.
Yeah.
I used an analogy of people. I said, did you remember the first time you learned to drive? When you were 16 or whatever you are in Canada, and you got to learn how much pressure to put on the brakes and how to change gears back then, or how to put the signal and how to not push on too much gas so you don't jerk yourself like that. You had to pay attention.
A lot of things to
Now,
juggle.
yeah. And today, go to the grocery store and come home. Do you remember putting it on your signal? Stopping at a light? You're probably talking on the cell phone, drinking
Autopilot.
coffee. Some women are putting on makeup. Some men are looking at women putting on makeup. Like you're not paying attention, but you got safely there and home, not remembering any of it because your unconscious mind did it for you.
Right.
That's the job of your unconscious mind. When you learn something, it puts those neurons and makes those connections. So every time you want to go get broccoli, you don't have to relearn driving a car.
Right.
Well, it doesn't just happen with driving.
Yeah.
It happens with meeting people. It happens with meeting potential people for you to date. It happens with interacting with your children. You're running programs that you don't realize you're running
Yeah. Yeah.
in
It's
every
autopilot.
area of your life. And when you create that awareness, okay, I'm running a program. All right, start to find the pattern. How many times is it repeating itself? Write it, keep journal. It's happened again and again and again and again. His name is Bob, and then his name is John, and then his name is Mark, but it's the same guy. That's the pattern. And why am I running this pattern?
Yeah.
And you find that and you release it and you make a new pattern, and then you have a choice. Because right now we don't have a choice. We're just running what the program says to do.
Yeah. 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 So the autopilot can be good or it can be negative or a combination of both for all of us, really. So it's recognizing the ones that aren't working for us anymore and shifting them to good ones that are going to continue to work for us. Yeah, that's key. That's one thing I talk a lot about is our belief systems to shift our habits because the habits are driven by our beliefs. Like you say, that pattern that just keeps running. So until we disrupt it, it's going to keep running. So you got to want to disrupt it and become aware and do something about it. Well, this has been awesome. Thank you so much, Michael, for joining me. Like I say, we go down rabbit holes all the time. This has been good. I
Thank you,
appreciate
Ann.
this.
I
Thank
had such a
you.
great time. You're just an amazing host, and I love what you're doing and how you're helping the world. So thank you so much
Oh,
for
thank you so much.
sharing me with your audience. I feel honored.
Yes, and it's an honor to have you. So if anybody wants to connect with Michael, I'm going to make sure his contact information is below this video in the description. So If you want to reach out, that's where you can find them, and that's how you can reach out. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you to all my listeners, and we'll talk again real soon.
Thank you.